Welcome back. So, today we're talking about the Type HIE automatic. It is one of the most exciting new additions to the Japanese lineup and probably the single weapon that secures Japanese dominance at BR5 more than any other weapon. Now, I know Japan is only fighting America, so it's not exactly the highest bar to be dominant, but the Type HIE, if you put it on any other army in the game, would be absolutely disgusting. It is disgusting having it as a Japanese player. So, what is the Type HIE? Where does it sit? All that. So the Type HIE automatic rifle is a Tier 5 BR5 weapon at the end of the Japanese rifle tree. Those of you who have used the Tier 3 BR2 HIE rifle will be very familiar with this, as it is effectively the same gun, but with a significantly larger magazine and with full auto. So, let's get into it. The Type HIE automatic rifle, per its unupgraded stat card, is an automatic rifle with an attachable magazine for 30 rounds. It's essentially a light infantry machine gun based on the semi-automatic Type HIE rifle design. That's true in a sense. It's very reminiscent of something like a BAR, but in practical in-game performance-wise, I think it feels much more akin to an AK. And I know I've compared other things to an AK before, but I think this is really and truly the first gun that I've picked up in this game that feels like running around with an assault rifle in any other game. Running around with the AS-44 or the STG, like, yes, it is assault rifle-like, but they don't do the same damage as this. Those, like, they feel like assault rifles, but I'm probably not articulating this the way I want to, but those feel more akin to big SMGs than, like, full-fledged assault rifles. This actually feels like a proper assault rifle. Like, you can put it on semi-auto, and you effectively have a fully fledged semi-automatic rifle that you can use to reach out and touch somebody on the other side of the map. At the same time, you can put it on full auto, and you can sit there and shred rooms with it. It excels at clearing trenches, it excels at fighting at range. It is truly an all-around weapon. And the thing is, it's not just like your average all-around weapon with no bells and whistles. It's an all-around weapon with a bipod so you can deploy it and be stable with it. And it also has a bayonet in proper Japanese fashion. Now, stat-wise, it fires at 6.5 caliber. Unupgraded, it has a hit power of 11.6 at 10 meters, 9 at 100. It fires at 720 rounds a minute, reload time of 3.1, 60 vertical, 22 horizontal with a 30 round detachable magazine. It weighs 4.9 kilos and it fires in auto and semi-auto. Now remember, this is unupgraded. The fire rate will get a lot closer to 800 when you upgrade it, and it will do a little bit more damage. All of that is to say, if you were to compare it against any of the other automatic rifles that are commonplace in the game right now, let's say the FG-42-2 for example, you're firing at a similar fire rate, you have 10 more rounds, and at least from my experience with it, it has virtually no recoil. It is truly an amazing gun. If you look at it versus the Russian options I think do a little bit more damage, and they have a lot less ammo in them. They literally have half. They have 15 rounds in them. They also shoot a little bit slower, but shooting slower may or may not be to their benefit. This is to say that if you took the Type PA automatic and you put it on any other army in the game, it would absolutely dominate. Even more so when you put it on the Japanese army that traditionally has lacked for particularly effective weapons, at least in the eyes of the player base. Personally, I kind of disagree with that. So, this is effectively the best automatic rifle in the game right now. And you can put it on every single soldier. In my experience, I was running this on squads that I was still leveling a bit, so they were not perked out. Most of them do not have vertical recoil reduction. Most of them don't have reload speed or horizontal reload, or horizontal recoil reduction, anything like that. This is not a gun that I felt like I needed that on. I feel like if I put it on, I'd be able to use it on full auto and just hit people anywhere on the map. And there were times where I was sitting there and burst firing it at people dozens of meters away, and still having no problem keeping it on target. It is truly a nightmare for American forces to go into. I was sitting here the other night when I was playing with it, when I was first using it, and I turned to my friend and said something along the lines of, "Man, these Americans must just be sitting here like, what fresh hell did I walk into where every single Japanese soldier I run into has a fucking assault rifle?" So, looking at it against its chief competitor, because this is on Japan, right now Japan exclusively fights America. America doesn't really have a good answer to the Type PA automatic rifle. The M2 is a fantastic weapon, but the M2 carbine really is more like an SMG than a proper rifle. It does significantly less damage, 7.3 at 10 meters, and it fires a little bit quicker at 750. It still has a 30-round magazine, it still has a bayonet, and you can still semi-auto and full-auto it. But the M2 carbine is a weapon that lends itself very well to close quarters and very well to the mid-range on semi-auto. But if you're actively fighting in the mid-range regularly, then, and especially if you're fighting in the long range, you're usually better off, in my experience, having either a Johnson or an M1 Garand. And between the two, I think I prefer the M1, but I like them both. Now, as an American, you can split your squads between M1 Garands and M2 Carbines. You can even forgo having backpacks and run both of them on a lot of your soldiers. And while that's a more expensive option to run, it does offer you more or less unparalleled versatility. There's no other nation that can really put something like the M2 on every soldier, but at the same time, there are other nations that can use the FG-42 too, which I think already kind of outclassed the M2. But I think that's more of a how you play the game and personal experience thing. Situationally, the M2 is excellent. It's just the M2 lacks the versatility to really fight in the mid-range, and it makes it so that you can have effectively 9-man assault squads, which is really nice and can be extremely potent. But then if you look at it against something like the Type PA, well, the Type PA I think is just as good, if not better, at close range. It does sacrifice a little bit of fire rate, but it's doing more damage per shot. And it's still a 30-round magazine. And it's still extremely stable. And then when you're fighting in the mid to long range, the Type PA does perfectly fine. It's perfectly adequate. Now, I know I am really hyping the Type PA up, and that's because it is a phenomenal gun. But it does have its shortcomings. It really has 3 major shortcomings. Number 1, if you've ever used any of the other Type PA rifles, you will be familiar with the sights on it. The Type EA sight is effectively an aperture at the back with a little teensy tiny spike in the front. And on first glance, it actually doesn't seem like that bad of an optic or sight. I tend to prefer front sights that are either hooded or are like the American sights where it's like a trident. And I think that's because it makes it more comfortable to shoot at people moving perpendicular to you. So if somebody's running from left to right or right to left or coming at an angle towards you, I think it makes it easier to hit them. But maybe that's not true. That might just be my own cope. But with the Type EA sight, I find if somebody's running at you, it's very easy to hit them because you can just put this little line on them and you're going to hit them. If they're moving away from you, coming towards you, whatever. But as soon as they're moving left to right, I think it becomes a lot harder to hit people with this sight. Or with this... yeah, with this sight. I don't know, that's just been my personal experience with it. I really do not like the sight on it. I didn't really like it on the normal EA, and while this is fine at close range, I don't really like it. Now, number 2, and this is arguably the bigger of these two, this has a hinge action, kind of like a Luger. And if you've used a Luger before, you know every time that you shoot, the action will hinge up, block the sights, and go back down. And when you're firing a pistol, it can be a little bit annoying, but it's not that big of a deal. The thing is, when you're firing a rifle, especially an automatic rifle, it starts to become more of an issue. If you're at close range, you can hip fire, not an issue. You can scope in or aim down sights. It's still not really a huge issue because they're so close that, I mean, it's hard to miss. But when you're shooting at people far enough away that you want to use your sights, but not right in front of you, between the explosions going off around you making your screen shake and all of the smoke coming out of the front of the gun, now add on to all of the normal stuff that you've got going on around you in a normal enlisted game, you now have this thing flapping up and down every time the gun fires that blocks your sight. And imagine if you took like a fan and you spun a fan blade and you're trying to look through the fan blade. And that's basically what this is like. So you can still see them. It's just every half a second they're obscured. And so if you've got somebody who kind of blends in with cover and the screen's shaking because there's artillery coming down and there's smoke from your gun and now this thing's flapping up and down, there's been times where I've lost track of somebody because of it. I don't think it's like a huge issue or a crazy deal breaker with this gun. It's still a good gun. It's just annoying. Now, when you're firing it on semi-auto, I don't think it's really an issue because you fire the gun slower, it doesn't pop up as often. It's really just annoying when it's in full auto. And that's really what it is. It's an annoyance. It's not enough that it's going to break your ability to use the gun, but something that has a different action would probably be more effective. Now, the final thing, and this is probably the biggest of all three, is the ammo count. The Type EA rifle carries 60 rounds total. It has two 30-round magazines, one of them is in the gun, one of them is in your pocket. And depending on how you approach this, that either sounds not so bad, or it sounds awful. My initial take is, what the hell, I have like no ammo. Because if you approach this being like a bar, or being like an assault rifle, having two magazines feels awful. But I was playing this alongside the Type 4, and so it gave me a little bit more context. If you compare it instead to other rifles, the ammo count actually isn't so bad. If you look at the Type 4, I want to say you carry like 50 or 60 rounds total, and they're in 5-round stripper clips, and you can load 10 rounds into the rifle. So that makes sense for that type of rifle. Same with like a bolt action, right? It makes sense having like 40 rounds. The thing is, if I handed you an SMG and I gave you one reload for it, it would feel kind of bad. If I gave you an MG42, and they regularly do this in the game, and gave you one drum on the gun and one more belt in reserve, it feels kind of bad. That's the same state that this rifle's in. And now, don't worry. There is a very easy solution to this problem. Large ammo bags. They take you from having 60 rounds to having 120. And when you have 120 rounds, it actually feels pretty good. Because you have 30 rounds in the gun and you've got 3 reloads. And that kind of feels standard to what other games give you if you run around with an assault rifle. Admittedly, I personally prefer to carry like 6, 8, 10 magazines, but I'll take what I can get. 90 rounds in this really does not feel that bad. And the thing is, even with 60 rounds, even if you don't have access to ammo bags yet, don't ask me how you wouldn't. Like, I assume you spent all of your silver getting Type EA rifles and you have no silver for ammo bags. You can fire your first magazine full auto. You can even fire the first half of your second magazine full auto, and then swap to semi-auto, and just clean up with that until you can either find an ammo box or switch soldier. And to be fair, on semi-auto, it's really not a terrible rifle. I think some of the issues with the BR2 HEA rifle come from it only having a 5-round magazine. Having 10, 15, 30 rounds as a semi-auto rifle, depending on how many rounds you have left, really doesn't feel that bad. So using it on semi-auto, and the thing is, I say using it on semi-auto like that's a bad thing. The thing is, if you're shooting at people at range, like let's say you're defending a point, the enemy's being slow to push, they're not really being aggressive, you're going to be on semi-auto anyway. So your ammo's going to feel much better there. But if you're assaulting enemy positions, if the enemy's pushing you hard, I feel like you need the ammo bags on these guys. Because it has the kind of fire rate where you can blow through all of your ammo in a blink. There were times where, because initially I didn't have ammo bags, essentially what I was doing is putting an ammo box, like I'd rush onto a point with my squad, build an ammo box with my engineer, and then just fight around the ammo box. And every time I would go dry, I'd just go pick up more ammo and keep fighting. Now there are also lots of times where I just got blown up or whatever, you know, normal enlisted stuff. And ammo wasn't a concern because I was, you know, meeting the big sun in the sky. But in general, if you can get past the 3 issues I mentioned, this is a pretty good rifle. Even with all of those issues, I actually think it's probably still the best rifle in the game. And the thing is, some of those issues are not unique to this. Running ammo bags is kind of a necessity on the FG42 too as well. And even on some of my assaulters with like submachine guns and whatnot, running ammo bags on them is even a necessity. So this isn't like a unique problem to this gun. I just think it's more noticeable with this gun because the difference in having ammo bags and not having ammo bags is I get 2 magazines versus I get double that. So it's kind of a big deal. Now, what was I running for these guys? I ran 2 rifleman squads, and I want to say I ran an engineer squad. I've changed my lineup since then, but yeah, I was running 2 rifleman squads and an engineer squad, and one of the rifleman squads had Type 4s, and the other rifleman squad and the engineer squad both had Type HEAs. The rifleman squad I had 2 engineers on and an AT soldier. I think I actually changed that partway through. I think I had a machine gunner at first, but the thing is, the Type EA rifle makes having a machine gunner redundant. So if you're planning on using a rifleman squad with these at high VR, I highly recommend that you just shit can the machine gunner and replace it with an AT soldier. There's lots of allied armor rolling around. The Japanese AT weapons do pretty good at dealing with all of the allied armor, so that's what I would do. If you wanted to keep the machine gunner, you can. It's just most of the Japanese machine guns feel like they have more recoil than the Type HE, and the Type HE effectively does the same job better. It feels like it has less recoil. It has less ammo, sure, but I think it does the same job better. I think it's also a little bit more accurate. Plus, having 2 engineers means most of the time I can actually get whatever I want to build built. You could make an argument for taking a radio operator. You could also make an argument for taking a medic. I don't really like radio operators outside of dedicated radio squads because they don't get the cooldown. And I feel like you could bring a medic or an assaulter depending on, which squad you have. You could give him a Tokyo Arsenal SMG that would give him a little bit more punch at close range, but the Tokyo Arsenal SMG climbs a lot. It has a lot of muzzle flip, and I feel like this gun, the Type A automatic, is more reliable in the same role. Just because it's more versatile and more stable, but it wouldn't be a bad choice. It's just one or the other. Personal preference. I wouldn't bring a sniper, though. I don't think the Japanese have any decent snipers that would fit into the context of this squad. I think you can make a sniper work at low BR where everybody has, like, a bolt-action rifle in the squad, but the Japanese don't have a semi-auto sniper yet, so I wouldn't bother. Compared to the Type 4, because like I said, I ran the Type 4 alongside it. The Type 4 is a good gun, but I feel like the Type PA does everything the Type 4 does better. I think the Type 4 is more comfortable to aim because of its sights, but I think that's about it. It's kind of like, if you had the choice to go between an M1 Grand and a bar, I feel like most of us would choose the bar, and it's because the bar effectively is just a bigger, badder M1 Grand. So, yeah. In essence, it is a bomb-ass rifle. I highly recommend it. It's definitely worth grinding. It's the first thing that I went and ground out for Japan. I'm looking forward to getting some of the other toys for Japan. I need to record some footage for the Type 100 MG. I have it. It's not quite what I expected it to be, but I'll talk about that more in its own video. I'm still working towards the Ho reproduction. Every time that I see my teammates with it, it seems like a monster, but I'll withhold judgment until I get it. And I'm still really excited to get the Key 84 Co, but I've been kind of taking my time and doing that one last because I have to get the J2 M3 before it, and to be honest, I'm not super excited for the J2 M3. I like Raidens a lot in like War Thunder, or in other games where I fly planes a lot, and I'm, consistently flying planes to go after other planes, but in the context of Enlisted, I feel like it's a cool plane, but not something that I'm super excited for. So, let me know, have you guys used the Type PA? Do you like it? I think it's pretty awesome. I guess before I go, I should go into perks a little bit. You could probably put vertical recoil reduction on it if you really wanted to. I'm not sure how much you would gain from it, so I'd probably go for reload speed first. And you might consider putting horizontal on, but in my experience it didn't feel like it was shooting in circles or zigzagging left and right real bad, but it's probably a better add than vertical, but vertical's fine. It's very similar, actually, now that I think about it, to the T-20 for the Americans, just with 10 more rounds and a little bit less recoil. But yeah, let me know what you think of it down below. If you've got it, has your experience been like mine? If you don't have it, are you excited to get it? What did you grind out instead? I guess I'm wondering, did you go for the plane or the tank? I can see why you would want to go for one of those first. They're probably a little bit more impactful. And they're definitely cheaper because putting this on everybody cost me a fortune. I've been like silver broke for a while now because of it. But it's well worth it. I very much appreciate this gun. Anyway, as per usual, get out there, kick ass, take names, and win your games.